For my couching stitch here, I'm going to need 2 pieces of yarn. One that's a little bit shorter, and this is just going to lay on top of my burlap. I think I'm going to do this building for me. And then I just sort of place it on top of my little marker line, and I can trim it at the end of it. I want to make sure, if anything, I leave a little bit of extra yarn rather than cut it too short. So once this fits sort of on top of that marker line here, then I'm ready for my next piece of string. Now my next piece of string is going to be much longer. This is the part that's going to be wrapping around the blue yarn here. So I'm going to go ahead and thread this so we can get started. Now that it's threaded, I can go ahead and get started with my couching stitch. So for that, I always like to hold my yarn that sits on top of the burlap in place with my thumb. And then with my other hand, I'm going to start by going underneath my burlap, as always, so we don't see the knot. And I'm just going to come up right next to this blue yarn here, as close as I can get to it. Then I'm going to pull all the way until the knot hits the back. And then what we do for couching stitch is we just jump over this blue yarn that's sitting on top, or whatever color yarn you have. And then we go back down to the bottom. And what happens is when you do that, it wraps around the yarn that's sitting on top and gives it this really pretty effect here. Then I'm going to put my thumb down again, holding this in place on top of this marker line. And then I'm going to come up from the bottom again, really, really close. If I'm too far away, that's not good because that'll create a line. It's not going to wrap around my yarn. So if that happens to you, just keep poking until you get a little bit closer. And once you're right up next to it, you can pull it all the way. Then jump over the yarn again and go down to the other side. And then you just continue that pattern. You move your thumb up, making sure it's on the marker line. And then you find a spot that you can come up really close to that yarn that's sitting on top, pull it all the way, jump over it to the other side. I like to stay in the same row if I can. And then go back down to this side. That's going to wrap around my yarn. So I'm going to continue that. And if this comes off while you're working, it's really not a big deal. All you really need to have in place is your next stitch. So if this happens to me, I can just move this here, do this stitch. Then I can move my thumb forward, make sure that I'm putting it back on that line, and do the next stitch. Now here I can't put my thumb in front of it because it's at the corner, and I want to go this way. So something that's really important with couching stitch is anytime you get to a corner, even if it's not a thumb's distance away, you want to put a stitch there, because otherwise it's not going to stay on that corner. You're going to sort of cut that corner off. So I'm going to put this back up, and I'm going to make sure that I get one stitch right here in this corner before I turn my burlap and keep going the other way. Once I have that corner stitch, I can put this forward this way and then do my next stitch. If it helps you, you can even turn your burlap sideways like this so that you know where to put your stitches. Once you've gotten to the end, then all that's left to do is to flip this over and then create a knot on the back and then cut it short. So again, I'm pushing this as close to the burlap as I can, and then I can cut it near that knot.